Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, for the introduction and also for having us and the ReMO community for giving us a chance to introduce this. So this is really, really nice, and we've been looking forward to this a lot. So we will talk today a little bit about, of course, where this idea came from, that we wanted to create this sort of practical tool to support PhD students. We will share a little bit about the development over the past 2 years, how we what the first ideas were, and also how we then eventually came to develop it and produce it. And then, of course, and I think this is what people will probably find most interesting, we will also try it out in 3 rounds of interaction. And then afterwards, there will be a little bit of time also for questions and feedback. We are very welcoming of any kind of feedback or thoughts that you might have on the kit or the questions itself, or the research behind it. So please, please let us know. This for today. Of course, today is not as much about us, but I do want to say a little bit about the team behind this. So we are actually 3 friends. What we usually do is play Cards Against Humanity, for those who know. So that's a very different kind of card game than the one that we developed. But it kind of inspired us to do something with cards, with reflection cards, something hopefully a little bit of fun, but also something that triggers reflection. And for this game, we put our expertise together. Taida, she's a last year PhD student at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam, where she studies student well-being, and she's specifically focused on digital intervention. So she has developed an app over the course of her PhD where she uses like what they call micro interventions, so really tiny interventions that you can give to students that promote reflection and eventually, hopefully, also well-being. Luisa, she really is, I think, I would say the brain behind this game in terms of expertise around PhD student well-being. She's currently finishing her PhD, writing, I think, the last pages, and her PhD has been focused on academic well-being with the specific focus on interventions to promote PhD student well-being. And I'm a postdoc at the UvA. I did my PhD on coaching, and specifically in the context of healthcare professionals. So in a way, you could maybe think like, what does healthcare to do with academia? But while the demands might be very different in one way, they are also similar in many other ways in terms of being it like a high pressure, high demanding environment. And our idea was putting all our sort of expertise and also interest and passion together, and develop this practical tool at the end of the day. Why a PhD coach kit? So it is very common that early career academics and specifically PhD candidates struggle with mental health problems. Luisa, I think this is where you can share a little bit more about your expertise around that topic.
I think right. I mean, also through the work of ReMO, I think a lot has been done in terms of raising awareness of the struggles that academics face, in particular also PhD students. And as Lara said, this is also the topic of my dissertation project. So we do know that academia is a high-stress environment, and mental health problems are particularly common among PhD students. So there's research that shows that, I think there's even research from 20 years ago showing that stress levels were really high in academics. And we do know that PhD students have a much higher risk to develop common psychiatric disorders such as anxiety or depression. So there is really you could say a mental health crisis going on in academia, and that also stresses, of course, the need for better support facilities, because what we right now see is that while awareness is raising, there's not so much being done in terms of increasing support facilities for academics and PhD students in particular. And as Lara already said a little bit about the demands, we do know that the demands are very high for academics and PhD students. So of course, there's publication pressure. Sometimes PhD students even face like fixed publication requirements, so they can only defend their dissertation once they have published 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 journal articles. And at the same time, we also know that there is a lack of important resources. For example, if we talk about PhD students, we all know that this is a temporary employment, so there is a lack of job security that can be really stressful for PhD students from the get-go, essentially, because you do know that once you have finished your PhD, you will have to compete with lots of graduating PhD students, and there is more PhD students than there is job opportunities. So there is that really is an important source of stress for PhD students. But of course, there are many others, such as a lack of supervisor support, for example, that can cause stress for PhD students. And what we also know from research is that PhD students also, they're very self-critical, and they also tend to internalize their problems. So often when we face issues throughout our PhD, we might feel like, oh yeah, it's me, it's a me problem rather than it's an us problem. So maybe I'm the one that is not good enough, and everybody else seems to do just fine. So that of course is really problematic, because people feel that it is them that is basically cause of the issues, and that leads to self-blame and guilt and other problematic feelings. So yeah, based on that, it was kind of like our mission with the PhD Coach Kit to help PhD students understand that their issues are not just their issues, but it's common issues that all PhD students eventually struggle throughout their PhD. And I think that is really important to understand, because once you do know that it's not you, but it's that we are all in this together, that in itself can be a little bit like, I think, therapeutic, and it can also help PhD students to seek support. And I think talking about these issues is a first important step. All right, Lara, you will continue, right?
Yeah. So I will share a little bit about the development process, how we went about this. So what you can see here is the three of us during a conference of our graduate school, the Kurt Lewin Institute. And this was 2 years ago, when we had just gotten like a small grant from our graduate school, who basically said, okay, this is a nice idea, let's see what you can come up with. And what our first idea was, why we went to this graduate school meeting or conference, was to gather some sort of informally data about what PhD students struggle with most. So what we, to get a little bit of attention from people among all the posters that were presented by researchers, we brought our own poster and also a spinning wheel with different topics, like work-life balance, publications, workload, peer support, and so on. So a number of topics that we felt and also knew from the literature could be relevant, and maybe could serve as some conversation starter with PhD students, when they could, spin the wheel, and then they would end up on a topic like work-life balance. They were just being invited to share a little bit about, what it meant for them, and if they would experience any particular issues for that, in that category. So we had some really nice conversations, not only with PhD students, but also with their supervisors, who would also, from their perspective, share a little bit about the struggles that they either experienced in their supervision, or also maybe as a PhD students or a supervisor early on. So it was a nice way to gather some first data. And then there was a long time nothing. So basically almost 2 years, we procrastinated ourselves on the development. And maybe that was also one of the reasons why we came up with a procrastination topic for the card game itself. But it's not that we didn't do anything. Luisa went to Australia to work on a reward and recognition project for academics. Tyler developed an app, and I finished my PhD. So there were lots of things going on, but that was not necessarily directly connected to this project. So roughly like a half a year ago, we said, okay, now we really have to actually make this work and not only talk about it. So what we did is we developed a prototype that you can see here laid out on the table. Basically, It's the first prototype of questions that we developed together with a professional coach from the UK, Jenny Rogers. She helped us to make sure that not only the questions were relevant from her expertise of also coaching a lot of young academics, but also that we would get the questions in terms of the coaching methods right, because we are ourselves not professional coaches. So we worked with her together to develop the kit, and also with the mentoring team from the University of Amsterdam. They work with a lot of PhD students throughout their PhD to mentor them on issues that they experience, and they helped us also a little bit in this development process. So we arranged a meeting with roughly like 15 to 20 students from different faculties from our own university to have them just try it out and see. Luisa and I were just sitting on these tables and listen in a little bit and get an idea if whether what we came up with also was like in practice relevant, and hopefully also a little bit fun to do. And they look like they have fun, but they also knew that we were taking a picture. So I'm not entirely sure if that has influenced them in any way. But we had a really good experience like with them trying it out. And that also, gave us a little bit of an push to say, okay, now we can, after the final edits, really try to produce this. And we were really lucky to work together with a publisher here from the Netherlands who helped us to develop, so produce, and also distribute the coach kit. And this is where we basically are at now. A few months later, the kit is produced. And we've had a first launch session also at the UvA where we explained a little bit about it and have people try it out, just as we do in this session. And now we go to the next slide, and I will say a little bit more about how it actually looks like. I think we.
I'm sorry, there is an issue. Sorry. I'll try again. Let's go. Okay, there we go. Are you back?
Yeah, now it works. Perfect. So it's a card set of 80 questions, and these questions cover 10 different topics. And you can see the topics on the left-hand side here. So for instance, we have, let's say, navigating academia, which is about the expectations. Many of them are unwritten at the beginning of your PhD. So it's really about trying to figure out where you stand as a PhD student, what is expected from you, what you can expect from your supervisors, how the university environment works. So this is, I think, a topic that is especially relevant at the beginning of your PhD. But then we also have, for instance, career planning, which is a topic that is more common maybe at the end of your PhD, where you're much more thinking about the next step. Where should I apply to? Do I like to stay in academia, or would I rather consider working, let's say, in industry? But then we have a number of other things that are also less related to the specific academic environment, like self-care, for instance. What are behaviors that you could or should do to feel healthy and happy, or things like relationships, like how can people in your environment, whether that is at work or outside of work, support you. So basically, this is the topics that we have, and what we thought is important, because not everyone might be so not all the topics might speak to people in the same kind of way, and they might not necessarily know much about the topics. Let's say procrastination, maybe for people within psychology or well-being, they might know exactly what it is and what it feels like, but for other people it might be something that is less well known. So what we also developed is what we call a topic card. So basically, and I will show you an example in a second, but it's a card that says a little bit about what the topic is or what it entails, how it usually affects people, and also it gives some tips and tricks how people can actually deal with it, regardless of the reflection cards that are also part of that specific category. And in terms of how we think that this game, or how the cards can be used. So on the one hand, for individual reflection, but also for discussion in groups. And when we tried the kit out in the groups at our own university, we really felt that it is nice to have other people join in and brainstorm together about the card and share their ideas and their own experiences. And it might especially help people who are maybe at the beginning less willing to share their own experiences to eventually open up when they feel that other people also procrastinate, that other people also don't know things about how things work in academia, or that they have trouble with their supervisors. So I think this really can be used both individually and in like group discussions or bigger groups. And yeah, this is how it looks like. So here, for example, for the stress topic, you can see the first section is on the problem. So what it is, then how it affects us. So basically the consequences of stress for the body and mind. And also then eventually we give some ideas on how you can, work on dealing with your stress. And then when you go to the next, here you can see 2 example questions, and you will see a lot more in a second. But basically, one of the questions for procrastination would be, what's the cost of starting a task too late? And an example card for supervision would be, on a scale from 1 to 10, what would need to change to improve the relationship with your supervisors by 1 point? So very different topics and very different types of coaching questions. But both are meant to start reflection on that specific issue or topic, and also trigger some action-oriented behavior. And now Luisa is taking it over for the tryout session.
Yes, yeah, we thought after the introduction, it's of course nice for you to also work with the cards a little bit and in the different topics. So we thought we will do 2 rounds of discussion in breakout rooms.